Pollster Frank Luntz recently hosted a focus group with more than a dozen people from across the country, all of which voluntarily quit their jobs during the pandemic.
A lack of connectivity between senior leadership and the rest of the organization kind of was a deciding factor for me.
They made people come back into the office even at the height of that first winter. And I have family with health conditions that I wanted to be able to quarantine and go back home and see them safely. And I wasn't going to be able to do that working there.
And I spent the entire time writing policy about how people should interact, how our employees should interact with customers. And here I was in the comfort of my home, or at the time, my RV in the driveway because we didn't have any room in our house. And, it was so difficult. It was, I couldn't take it anymore.
Joining us right now to discuss the great rethink ahead of the upcoming January jobs report is pollster and political strategist Frank Luntz. Frank, it's great to see you. Fascinating to hear people and their explanations for why effectively they quit. The question I'd ask you is, what was your, everybody had a different view. So was it really idiosyncratic, or is there, there's clearly a trend, but what is it underneath it?
Underneath it, and it was hosted by Conversate Labs, Abby Eisenhower, an incredible study of both men and women. And the responses are the same. 3 points. Number one, senior leadership in these companies are not listening to their employees, to their anxieties and concerns. They want to go back to normal when, for the employees, it's not normal anymore. Number two is that life is beyond compensation. This is not just what you get in your paycheck. It's work-life balance, work-life choices. It's the environment that you're in. And number three is that they're thinking about their families, about their own personal priorities. Things have changed, Andrew, so significantly. And I believe that corporate America doesn't fully get it. They're driven to work. They don't have to mix with the average individual. They get a chance to live a different life. And we used to talk about this division between the top and the bottom in corporations. And honestly, Andrew, to be candid, I would in some ways ignore that. I can't ignore it anymore because of Conversate Labs, these focus groups, the polling that we're doing right now. It's proof to me that the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, they don't understand the hopes, dreams, and most importantly, the anxiety and fears of the average worker, and it's going to come back to bite them in the months ahead.
So one of the things that the Great Resignation at least has raised for me is I know that there was a lot of stimulus money put into the system, but for a long time, folks like you and others have come on the air and we've talked about how the average American has less than $400 in their pocket for an emergency. And so it's been startling to see if that is true. So many people say, I don't even want a job. And so did you talk to them at all about their own household economics and how they're doing this and how long this can persist for in this way?
Yes. And what they're saying is that there are things more important than those household economics, that there are priorities, that they want to hear from corporate leadership exactly what they plan to do in the months ahead. Do you have to come in? What do you have to come in? Do you get to do blended? If they have to get home for their kids. The interesting thing about these people is that their ages 25 to 49, so many of them have children at home. And that adds a different challenge, a different component to the equation.
But are they taking on, I guess the question is, are they taking on debt to effectively not work? How are they affording to do this for what may turn out to be a lengthy period of time, especially as we also talk about inflation and additional costs? I understand people are trying to balance things, but at some point, there is no balance if you can't pay the mortgage or you can't pay the rent.
Oh, that's true. And these focus groups, these people, in most cases, have found new jobs. The emphasis here is not that people aren't working. They are, but they're working in different ways, in different places, and sometimes in completely different careers. Based on the numbers that we have, Andrew, and I don't mean to be provocative, one of the three of you should be looking for a new anchor ship over the next 12 months. That we are reevaluating and reimagining exactly what we want to do. And there are so many jobs out there. There's so much opportunity out there. So they are choosing to work just in a completely different place and in a completely different way.